Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Author by Heavenly Overlord. Translator by NYOIBO Studio. Audio novels by Novelist. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 66. Su Yu, do you still love me? Jiang Zuqing had a smile on her face. She widened her eyes, staring into Su Yu's star-like gaze. I already have a fiancé. Su Yu replied directly. He did not want any feelings of affection to arise between Jiang Zuqing and himself. That would be letting down Xiana. Jiang Zuqing kept her smile. Su Yu's answer was of no surprise to her. She was not disappointed, for she had not expected much. But, still, she involuntarily sighed. It looks like I no longer exist in your eyes and your heart. She once again leaned on Su Yu's shoulder. Jiang Zuqing felt a sense of closure, but also a sense of longing. A bitter tear dropped from her eyes, stopping at the corner of her lips. Her expression displayed a mixture of sadness and happiness. Her smile was pitiful. Su Yu, I'm sorry, I regret everything. A word of apology and regret, these were Jiang Zuqing's heartfelt words. A once proud and materialistic youth had learned life's true lessons and now felt grief and regret. Su Yu's heart shuddered. He genuinely felt sorry for her after hearing such a pitiful voice. Jiang Zuqing was only 14, an age of cluelessness and ignorance. She had made a mistake. Could he forgive her and give her a second chance? An image of the adorable and playful Xiana crossed his mind. The lovable figure made Su Yu shake his head. He could not let Xiana down. There are no opportunities to revisit mistakes made in life, but life can still continue. King you have to look out for yourself, Su Yu calmly lectured. Jiang Zuqing's petite frame shuddered. Her final shred of hope had been extinguished. She felt an intense pain pierce her soul. She hugged Su Yu tightly, unable to control her shuddering. She suddenly remembered what she thought she had lost the day Su Yu smashed their token of love on the ground. She finally understood that, what she had lost, was life's most treasured, sincere, and irreversible true love. Brother Su Yu, Jiang Zuqing's petite body convulsed. She choked as she called out to Su Yu, as he had called out to her in the past when she had admired him. But, she could never go back to the past. At the manor of the third prince, Jiang Zuqing was brought to her room to rest. Before getting off their horse, Jiang Zuqing had gazed once more at Su Yu. Once he had returned to the hall, Su Yu immediately paid his respects to the Duke of Xuanhuan. The two had survived many crises and had much to talk about. Father, if the opportunity arises, I will definitely help you find a medicine that can regenerate your lost arm. Su Yu had made up his mind. The Duke of Xuanhuan had a benevolent smile as he rubbed Su Yu's forehead. Silly child, the immortal elixir that can raise the dead is but a legend. Where are you going to start searching? Su Yu did not answer, but his gaze was resolute. After some hesitation, the Duke of Xuanhuan stared deeply at Su Yu and solemnly ordered him, I know that you are diligent in your cultivation. When you enter the sanctuary, you must work even harder. Before that, do not attempt to search for Xiana. Su Yu raised his eyebrows. Father, why is that? Today you have cleared your innocence and once again stand at the helm of the Xuanhuan prefecture. We should naturally go to Fenguang Valley to fetch Xiana back, so we may be reunited. Xiana's mother was the daughter of the head of the Fenguang Valley. She escaped the valley to be with me, and the valley still does not know of Xiana's existence. The Duke said bitterly. Now that Xiana's existence had been known by the Fenguang Valley, as well as the fact that she carries her mother's blood, they will definitely nurture and protect her with everything they have. Why would they return her to me? So Su Yu, if you wish to fetch Xiana back, you have to get stronger, fast. Otherwise, you can forget about getting Xiana back. Your life may even be in danger. The Duke of Xuanhuan spilled out the shocking truth. Su Yu had a brief moment of shock, but he quickly returned to his senses. Father, what exactly is the Fenguang Valley? Just how powerful are its fighters? The Duke of Xuanhuan shook his head. I don't know. I only know that it is very mysterious, so mysterious that nobody in the Fenguang Empire dares say its name. Its existence is taboo. Taboo. Su Yu's breathing sharpened. Su Yu thought of Xiana's voice and appearance and made up his mind. Xiana is my fiancée, no one can take her away from me. If they wish to deal with me they can bring it on. I, Su Yu, fear no one. Fenguang Valley, a taboo existence. His current abilities were not enough to face such a formidable foe. You live up to the reputation of my son-in-law, great. I, in my entire life, will only recognize you as my son-in-law. Anybody else can forget about gaining my recognition. The Duke of Xianyu laughed heartily. The two talked until late at night. Before they parted, the Duke gave Su Yu a final reminder, practice hard. Do not try to find out about Fenguang Valley, especially in the sanctuary. Given the relationship between the two countries, getting information in the sanctuary would do you more harm than good. The Fengalan Empire and the Fenguang Empire were far away from each other, and their relationship was neutral. The sanctuary was also very foreign. Reckless curiosity could bring Su Yu trouble. Su Yu took his leave and returned to his room to rest. Tomorrow he had to leave with Qiu Changjian for the heavenly sanctuary. What kind of world was that? As he entered his room, Su Yu smelled a fragrance. He looked to his side. At the corner of the wall, there was a pink incense which spread a red glow. Su Yu did not pay much attention to it. He knew that servants lit incense every day to purge the room of any weird smells. Though, this smell was slightly different than regular incense. But would any thieves dare infiltrate the manor of the third prince? Su Yu took a deep whiff of the fragrance before he stripped out of his robes and went to sleep. He dreamed of a female figure leaving a wet kiss on his cheek. Brother Su Yu, if time could rewind, I really wish I could be that innocent girl once again. I would always be by your side, laughing as we looked at the sunset, silently listening to the flute, watching the vast ocean and endless fields. But I can only return to the places of the past, not the past itself. Brother Su Yu, this is goodbye. The first rays of sunlight the following day were soft. Su Yu opened his eyes in a daze. His mind felt heavy. The previous night was hazy, his memory of it somewhere between a dream and reality. He looked around. As he glanced at the bronze mirror, he saw remnants of a red lip print on his cheek. Jiang Zuqing. Su Yu understood. He got dressed and searched for her in the manor. But she was gone. She had left the third prince's manor alone at dawn, her whereabouts unknown. Su Yu had a bitter frown and felt a sense of emptiness. Goodbye, lover of the past. The hour to leave for the sanctuary had arrived. Su Yu bade his farewells to the third prince, the Duke of Xianyu, and Qia Lingxuan. After saying their goodbyes, Su Yu and Qia Jingyu left for a new stage. Back at the third prince's hall, Lin Xiao was confused. Master, you sent someone to tail Jiang Zuqing and figure out her whereabouts. Why won't you tell Su Yu? The third prince fixed his gaze on the horizon and lightly sighed. Jiang Zuqing had guilt in her heart and did not want Su Yu to find her. Su Yu also has someone else in his heart and cannot give Jiang Zuqing a future. Their fate together is over. They should not meet again in the future. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 67. A few days after Su Yu had left, a beautiful nun, as lovely as a fox deity, silently cleaned the fallen leaves from a yard at a nunnery in Qingshan Town, the birthplace of Su Yu and Jiang Zuqing. As she looked up to the familiar plains, Jiang Zuqing was at peace. She had a smile on her face. Brother Su Yu, bon voyage. She continued to attentively clean the nunnery. A few days passed uneventfully until one day several women entered the nunnery. Unbeknownst to all, they are all experts sent by the third prince to protect Jiang Zuqing, and to ward off those who coveted her beauty. At times, beauty was a curse, even in the nunnery. At the palace in the capital, the third prince was taking care of political affairs from atop his throne. His face was full of relief and he let out a long sigh. Su Yu, the luckiest thing that has happened in my life was meeting you. You gave me this empire. Bon voyage, my only friend. The third prince laughed. He had the empire in his hands, but he was still indescribably lonely. Far away in the Fenglan Empire, 3 figures descended from the sky. Whoosh! Qiu Changjiang pointed in the air and a ripple appeared in the obviously desolate space before them. A black portal appeared from thin air and materialized into the shape of a door. Come in. Qiu Changjian entered. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu walked through the door, their eyes shining. They were struck by the scent of flowers and the songs of birds around them. The passers-by were passionate and familiar as they walked between their farms. They were all farmers in their youth. But each of their cultivation levels was at least at level 6 of the martial paths. This kind of power in the mortal world would definitely be considered demon level. But here, they were merely farmers. On the far horizon stood a magnificent island suspended in the air, inspiring awe. A massive series of steps descended from the island to facilitate transport. The floating island itself exuded radiance and was surrounded by fog. It looked like a celestial scene compared to the mortal realm. Without question, that was the heavenly sanctuary, and where they currently stood must have been the mortal sanctuary. Heavenly and mortal, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Oh, Junior Qiu brought back 2 holy disciples. Not bad. Hurry back to the hall of the holy disciples to rendezvous with the other holy disciples. Whoosh! Their appearance had alerted a black figure who stood at guard nearby. This figure's ability level was terrifying. He was definitely not weaker than Holy Disciple Qiu. Another level 9 of the martial path. Su Yu's pupils contracted. The sanctuary lives up to its reputation. Level 9 in the mortal realm was considered invincible, but in the sanctuary, they were only hidden guards. Hey, so it's your turn to be on guard today, Senior Zhang. Qiu Changjian was on good terms with Senior Zhang. He gave a warm laugh before he put on a stern expression. Senior Zhang, please escort him to the hall of the holy disciples. I have to report to teacher, for the situation is urgent. Senior Zhang gravely nodded his head and did not ask further questions. He called for another person to take over his duty and personally brought Su Yu and Qia Jingyu to the heavenly sanctuary. Senior Zhang, is it not Senior Qiu's main duty to bring people into the sanctuary? Su Yu did not understand. It looked like Qiu Changjian had a mission to accomplish and was anxious to report back to his teacher. Senior Zhang had an easygoing personality, obvious from the way he smiled. Yes, he was on a mission in the capital. Bringing you back along the way was convenient for him. Along the way, Su Yu and Qia Jingyu locked eyes. Without Qiu Changjian's sudden presence in the capital, Su Yu would have had been in grave danger. Qiu Changjian's expression had been grave, forced, and anxious. Su Yu could not imagine how urgent the situation was to be able to make a level 9 this anxious, but he did not dare ask. In a matter of time, they had arrived at the hall of the holy disciples. There were 3 other youths in the empty hall. Qia Jingyu froze for a moment. Senior Zhang, are these people like us, new additions to the holy disciples? Why didn't I see them at the holy meet? Senior Zhang blinked. Didn't Junior Qiu tell you? There are holy meets in every empire of the Alliance of the 9 Empires. Alliance of the 9 Empires. Both Su Yu and Qia Jingyu were dazed. They faintly remembered hearing that the Fenglan Empire was in an alliance with the surrounding 8 other empires. Qia Jingyu knew more about this, whereas Su Yu, being an imposter citizen in the Shenyu continent, was clueless. He only understood after he received a detailed explanation from Qia Jingyu. The alliance of the 9 empires was to combat the Fengguang Empire. In terms of their influence, the Fengguang Empire had even more land than the alliance of the 9 empires had in total. Thus the alliance of the 9 empires was formed to combat the huge Fengguang Empire. Su Yu's heart trembled as he imagined the world with 10 empires. The Fenglan Empire's land was equivalent to historical China. Wouldn't 9 united empires equal in size to the Fenglan Empire be about as big as China once was? And then, add in a Fengguang Empire, which was bigger than those 9 combined. Just how large was the Shenyu continent? Su Yu's heart dropped. The Duke of Xianyu had once said that the Fenguang Empire was controlled by Fenguang Valley and that Fenguang Valley's existence was taboo. He had also said their influence was massive. To see Xian'er again would be even harder than Su Yu had previously imagined. After a moment of shock, Su Yu regained his composure and listened to the explanation given by Senior Zhang. The sanctuary conducted a holy meet in each of the empires in the alliance of the 9 empires annually. The 9 great ministers of the sanctuary each were in charge of one empire. For example, the fiery minister was responsible for the holy meet in the Fenglan Empire. The sanctuary protects the alliance of the 9 empires against outside attacks in exchange for the talents of the alliance of the 9 empires, who are recruited by the sanctuary as students. Thus, in the Hall of the Holy Disciples, there were talents from other empires who also had the right to enter the holy sanctuary. Beyond the holy talents, there was another group who could earn entry. Those who were first recruited into the mortal sanctuary then gained insight into the holy decree could also enter the heavenly sanctuary, though they were rare. The appearance of Su Yu and Qia Jingyu had caught the attention of many. More accurately, the beauty of Qia Jingyu had caught the attention of many. Among martial artists, females were a minority, beautiful females were even rarer. Qia Jingyu was like a red lily among millions of green leaves. Her beauty made it hard for her to blend in. Of the 3 people in the hall, one was cold and the other was slow. Neither stepped forward. Beside them was a handsome youth, 16 years of age. He stepped forward with a smile on his face and cupped his hands as he faced Su Yu and Qia Jingyu. I am Feng Hao, from the Luri Empire. Might I ask where you guys are from? We will be together in the future. I hope that we can help each other. While he did say, we, his gaze was locked on the beautiful face of Qia Jingyu. Qia Jingyu did not say a word. Instead, she took half a step back and looked at Su Yu. Fenglan Empire, Su Yu. She is my friend, Qia Jingyu. Let's look out for each other in the future. Su Yu calmly replied. Feng Hao creased his brow slightly. The lady seemed to appreciate Su Yu's presence. Could they be a couple? Such a beauty would be wasted when paired with Su Yu. Feng Hao felt a little disgust towards Su Yu. Feng Hao was level 6 peak of the martial paths, while Su Yu was only level 5 peak. Anybody could see that Feng Hao had more potential in the martial paths. But there was no use being impatient. Feng Hao was patient, and as time passed, Qia Jingyu would definitely see the differences between him and Su Yu. If everybody is here, follow me. We will assign you to your housing. A middle-aged man in black robes stepped forward. His expression was cold and was extremely stern. He was even stronger than Qiu Changjian and Senior Zhang. Senior Zhang had a respectful expression. Junior Su, Junior Qia, you must obey the orders of Senior Zhao. The rules in the heavenly sanctuary are strict and cannot be broken. He is the first disciple of the Holy King and is in charge of miscellaneous stuff in the heavenly sanctuary. You must remember to not rebut him. He softly reminded them. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu were filled with respect. The first disciple of the Holy King. The exact limits of his abilities were hard to deduce. Everyone followed Senior Zhao out of the Hall of the Holy Disciples, into the entry of their living quarters. There was 4 rooms in total, with their own yard. In the yard, there were many exotic plants, thick with spiritual energy. Cultivation of their techniques would be most effective here. This is the living quarters for the 5 of you. There are only 4 rooms, but we have an extra person. 2 of you shall share a room, decide amongst yourselves who. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Su Yu, Feng Hao, and the other guys were fast and had each claimed a room. Qia Jingyu was shy and did not dare throw herself into the race. Thus, she fell behind. Feng Hao had a glint in his eyes. He smiled. Miss Qia, if you do not mind, we can share the yard. There are 2 sections in the room, enough for the both of us. Qia Jingyu arched her eyebrows, her heart filled with disgust. How could she share a house with a male stranger? Jingyu, do you want the left side or the right side? Su Yu had inspected his chosen room. He stood at the door, asking for her opinion. Chia Jingyu let out a smile and lifted the hem of her dress as she entered the room. She floated a fluttering butterfly. She smiled. I want the right side. She had no hesitation in living in the same room as Su Yu, as Su Yu had always given her a feeling of peace. She was not concerned about Su Yu having any poor intentions. The colors of Feng Hao's face changed. Chia Jingyu had been disgusted by his proposal but had readily accepted Su Yu. Her ready acceptance of Su Yu infuriated Feng Hao. What made Su Yu better than him? Did she not understand that, in the martial paths, the stronger take priority? Even though she had met Su Yu before him, she should not have rejected Feng Hao like that. Great. Now we will go collect your food and water. There are set times for collection and latecomers will not be served, Senior Zhao advanced coldly. In a matter of time, they had arrived at a white hall. The dishes inside the hall were fragrant, just a sniff seemingly boosted their cultivation level. Every dish in the heavenly sanctuary is made from treasures of heaven and earth, and are beneficial for cultivation, if you would treasure the opportunity. Senior Zhao stated. He then turned to leave, leaving behind the 5 people. Treasure the opportunity. What opportunity would there be while they ate? As soon as he got his food, Su Yu was shocked. What he got was a pickled carrot. Chia Jingyu got a dry bun, and Feng Hao only received leftovers. This food was even worse than what a normal, mortal family would eat. This food was a beggar's meal. Even more unbelievable was the dog which sat by the door. In its plate was a delicacy made from the finest ingredients. Their own meals would be acceptable if the heavenly sanctuary had a shortage of food. But, to give a dog the finest delicacies instead of them, this. Feng Hao was livid. This is too much. We are newly inducted disciples, but our meals are worse than the dogs. Why are you shouting? If you want better food, go get it. A senior disciple walked by as they munched on a snack, as if this upset was normal in the heavenly sanctuary. The delicacies made from the finest treasures found in heaven and earth were limited to 11 servings a day. 10 of the servings were given to the top 10 strongest prospective holy disciples, and 1 was reserved for the dog. The meaning was clear: if you want good food, make it into the top 10. Otherwise, you would eat worse than the dog. As humiliating as it was very useful for motivating people. How could they, an undefeated champion with their empire and now disciple within the heavenly sanctuary, admit to eating meals worse than the dog's meal? In the heavenly sanctuary, killing or injuring another person was forbidden, but the rules did not apply to creatures that were not human. It was obvious that, if you wanted to eat better than a dog, there was only one way: using your fists. The top 10 prospective holy disciples had mostly left the hall, leaving 2 of the prospective holy disciples to collect the last 2 servings of delicacies. Of those, the delicacies collected by the person ranked 9th out of the 10 were more exquisite and harbored more energy than the food collected by the person ranked 10th. Su Yu estimated that eating the delicacies 10 times in a row would allow him to break through to level 6 of the martial paths. This was unimaginable in the Empire. To be able to achieve a breakthrough just by eating, only the sanctuary could come up with such a thing. Feng Hao had a glimmer in his eyes. Taking a big step forward, he smiled. Junior Chia, wait for a moment. Let your senior get a serving of those delicacies for you. Chia Jingyu creased her brow. She did not get the chance to reject him before Feng Hao stepped forward. The lowest-ranked holy disciple of the top 10 was a young girl, her attitude peaceful. Her abilities were at level 6 upper tier, similar to Feng Hao. She had just returned home and had to be on night watch for 2 days, followed by being on standby after the new year. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 68. Junior Lu, it looks like we have an arrogant newcomer. How about I take your place? Besides the female youth stood a male youth of level 6 peak. He was ranked 9th of the prospective holy disciples, Zhang Mingyi. His appearance was normal, but he glanced at Junior Lu with a shred of passion. No need. Junior Lu shook her head to refuse and sighed. Perhaps I'm not suited for the heavy competition of the sanctuary. I'll probably get eliminated in the storm competition in a month's time. Storm competition. Zhang Mingyi's gaze turned stern, visibly anxious. With a look of worry on her face, Junior Lu exchanged moves with Feng Hao. Feng Hao's specialty was movement techniques and fist techniques, powerful yet flexible. Mountain crumbling fist. Feng Hao let out a low howl, his figure appeared to be floating. His movement technique was fast and powerful, he was like a ferocious tiger, full of explosive power without any loss of agility. His fists danced in the air, circled by a faint red aura. It was as if a meteor fell from the sky, burning wildly and emanating radiance, destroying everything in its path. Rumble. The air choked and trembled. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu were both surprised. A saint-level cultivation technique of the lower class. In the Fenglan Empire, Du Yuntian, widely regarded as the top talent, had only achieved the top-class level of an advanced-level technique. Feng Hao from the Luri Empire had managed to cultivate a saint-level technique. Both were the top of their empire's demon students, but Feng Hao was overwhelmingly stronger than Du Yuntian. Feng Hao may not be well liked, but his abilities were the real deal. Junior Lu was calm as she extended a jade-like finger. Her finger was crystalline and icy. A piercing cold encircled her finger. Swoosh. The air around her finger immediately filled with frost, it was hypnotic. The air within a 100 feet radius around her became colder. Even Su Yu and Chia Jingyu, who were not in the battle, felt the chill in the air. A saint-level technique at stage 2 top class. Zhang Mingyi was filled with praise. Junior Lu's perceptive ability is superb. A branch of the deity-level Icy Heart Core, the saint-level technique 9 Styles of Jade Unicorn, cultivated by her to stage 2 top class. Su Yu, Chia Jingyu, and the multiple prospective holy disciples were all surprised. How difficult was it to understand a saint-level technique? Gaining insight into stage 1 lower class would boost your abilities by a large amount. But, in the Heavenly Sanctuary, a saint-level technique at stage 2 top tier only ranked 10th out of 10. The massive difference in standards gave the audience a fear of the holy talents. The lowest ranked talent was already this powerful, what about the abilities of the top prospective holy disciples? What about the abilities of full-fledged holy disciples? Also, there were even more powerful techniques than saint-level techniques, deity-level techniques. Feng Hao's look of confidence was replaced with fear. He was a wolf approaching a small rabbit, only to see the rabbit had been a ferocious tiger all along. Rumble. Ah! Feng Hao flew back several meters and a metallic taste rose in his throat. Junior Lu still stood in her original position. She peacefully retracted her finger without any visible joy from her victory. In her eyes, Feng Hao was not even worth mentioning. Her victory had no need for celebration. On the contrary, a deep feeling of anxiety and unrest shone in her eyes. My level of abilities will surely get me eliminated in the storm competition, she pitifully whispered. The storm competition. It was the second time Su Yu heard her mention it. Just what was the storm competition? Junior Lu, despite being so powerful, was sure she would be eliminated. Zhang Mingyi looked down at the defeated Feng Hao, the corner of his mouth pointed downward. Newcomers, before eating proper food, you guys should learn how to eat dog food. With that, he swept his gaze past Su Yu and the other newcomers. Though, his gaze stopped at Chia Jingyu's petite body. Zhang Mingyi was obviously shocked by her fairy-like appearance. Chia Jingyu was slightly disgusted. She did not like Zhang Mingyi's behavior and gaze. Though, of course, if this little beauty wants it, your senior here would not mind sharing some of my food. Zhang Mingyi took in Chia Jingyu's appearance with his eyes. He did not bother to hide his lecherous intent. He had some respect for Junior Lu, for the gap between their abilities was not large. But Chia Jingyu was much weaker, so he did not bother to censor his words and gaze. Whoosh! A purple figure blocked the slender figure and shielded her from Zhang Mingyi's gaze. Jingyu, I'll take a serving of food for you. Su Yu turned his head. Chia Jingyu was obviously angered by Zhang Mingyi. Power truly meant everything in the Heavenly Sanctuary. Bullying a newcomer was actually tolerated. As she listened to Su Yu's words, Chia Jingyu was grateful, but smiled and shook her head. There's no need, I am not that spoiled, I can eat a bun. Furthermore, if I decide I want that food, I will use my own power to get it. Su Yu shook his head. I understand that you are strong and independent. But to bear humiliation and plan for the future is an important survival skill. Seeing her worried face, Su Yu laughed casually. Furthermore, considering our relationship, do you think to share food with me counts as humiliation? All right, I'll pay you back one day. Chia Jingyu had been convinced. She blinked her eyes, and her cheeks blushed as she wondered, what exactly is our relationship? In the past, they had slept in the same bed. Su Yu had said that he would give her an explanation after dealing with the Duke of Xianyu's crisis as well as Xiana's engagement. Today, only Xiana's engagement remained unresolved. Chia Jingyu's maiden heart thumped wildly. She knew that she would have to face their engagement someday, but she was still afraid. Feng Hao was humiliated. Seeing Su Yu overestimate his own abilities, he smirked coldly. I would advise you to not underestimate him. Even I was defeated, you have no chance. You were incompetent, Su Yu replied, cold and direct. Feng Hao was furious and did not mask his belittlement of Su Yu. You, with the surname Su, entering the heavenly sanctuary has made you arrogant. Do you really think you are invincible? You don't have the right to challenge Senior Lu. Even though Feng Hao had been defeated, at least his skill had garnered him a chance. Su Yu meant even less in this world than him. Su Yu took a big step forward without turning back. I want to correct 2 points. First, you are the arrogant one. The one defeated by Senior Lu was you, not me. Second, who said that I was challenging Senior Lu? He coldly asked. Whoosh. Su Yu turned and fixed his gaze on Zhang Mingyi. Your food. I want it. As for you, you can eat dog food. Su Yu took a big step toward Zhang Mingyi. The other newcomers, as well as the senior disciples, were all dumbfounded. Feng Hao's level 6 upper tier abilities were defeated Senior Lu, ranked 10th. Su Yu, at level 5 peak, now wanted to challenge Zhang Mingyi, a whole rank higher than Senior Lu. Su Yu was being emotional. He wanted to fight on behalf of Chia Jingyu, but he wasn't thinking straight. A lunatic without sense or fear, Feng Hao said with disdain. Zhang Mingyi was surprised. He obviously did not expect a newcomer to dare challenge him. Hey, Junior, you are very confident. Let me, your senior, give you a head start. Zhang Mingyi was relaxed, but hidden within him was a shred of disdain. Su Yu had upset him when he had blocked Chia Jingyu from his gaze. Su Yu shook his head and stepped forward. I would advise you, don't underestimate me. Zhang Mingyi laughed darkly. He desperately wanted to teach Su Yu a lesson but did not want to bring judgment upon himself for mistreating a newcomer. Shockingly, Su Yu had justified a rough treatment. Now Zhang Mingyi didn't have to hold back. Ha, fine, I won't hold back. Zhang Mingyi's gaze turned cold as he lifted his fingers and a mysterious rhythm circled between them. It floated between realities. It was as if his finger was from another realm, an illusion. Gradually, Zhang Mingyi's entire body slipped into another realm, dissociated from the mortal world. Medium-level Holy Decree. Junior Lu's expression was composed of envy and admiration. When she glanced at Su Yu, she had a look of pity. It looked like Zhang Mingyi really wanted to teach Su Yu a lesson, going so far as to use his holy decree. The sanctuary was like that. Power meant everything. If you did not want to be humiliated and be considered worse than a dog, then you must work hard on your cultivation. Finger from another realm. Whoosh. His finger was as if it was from another realm and alternated between realities. It painted a scene that seemed far away and picturesque. It intoxicated all those who saw it, drawing them into its illusion. Crash. The attack could cause heaven and earth to rumble and rivers to boil. It was as if the finger from another realm would destroy galaxies. Su Yu was calm. Whoosh. Suddenly, Su Yu entered the picturesque realm. He floated like a celestial being through the clouds, dissociated from the mortal world. But, Su Yu did not deliberately use his heavenly finger. Instead, he flailed his hand and caused the mysterious scene to wrap around his body. At that moment, Zhang Mingyi became a character in Su Yu's painting. Thump. Su Yu spread out an ordinary palm. The finger and palm collided. Rumble. Crash. Wah. Zhang Mingyi's cold eyes filled with shock. He spat out a mouthful of blood, unable to control his body. Zhang Mingyi stepped back with a few thuds. Unstable, he fell down onto his back. Advanced level holy decree. Zhang Mingyi realized in shock. A look of respect and fear filled his eyes. Senior Lu rubbed her lips in disbelief and shock. The senior disciples broke out into chatter. Ranked 9th of the top 10 prospective holy disciples, Zhang Mingyi had been defeated with a single strike from a newly inducted prospective holy disciple. Su Yu remained impassive. He took Zhang Mingyi's food and left with Chia Jingyu back to their yard. Who is he? Su Yu had become infamous after just one battle. The senior disciples wanted to find out more about him. Finally, they heard from Feng Hao, whose face had turned pale as a sheet, that he was Su Yu, from the Fenglan Empire. Back in their room, Su Yu sat opposite Chia Jingyu. They opened up the food only to realize that it was all consumable treasures considered rare in the mortal world. For example, the jade fire marrow that Su Yu had obtained was but a side ingredient in these rations. The main ingredient held an incredible energy. They had never seen such an ingredient. A mere mouthful made Su Yu and Chia Jingyu feel their cultivation level rise. There was a good amount of food. Coupled with Chia Jingyu's small appetite, there was just enough to share between the two of them. Sigh. After the meal, Su Yu stretched, his energy replenished. His cultivation level had obviously improved. Consuming the food for a few more days would allow him to break through into level 6. Chia Jingyu was already at level 5 upper tier. After the meal, she had immediately had a breakthrough to level 5 peak. Her expression was surprised. Her first day in the sanctuary had allowed her stagnated cultivation level to achieve a breakthrough. Chia Jingyu was elated, her heart filled with gratitude. She looked at Su Yu and flashed an innocent and pure smile. Su Yu, thank you. Su Yu's heart was excited as he calmly waved a hand. The sanctuary has plenty of resources, much more than the mortal world. If we practice hard, we will definitely surpass our former selves. A single meal was already terrifyingly powerful. It was hard to imagine what other resources the sanctuary may have. Before their meal, Su Yu had been anxious. The idea of Fenguang Valley had weighed heavily on his mind. But, after he witnessed what an ordinary meal could do for him, he was filled with hope. Fenguang Valley, do not attempt to keep me from Xianna. After a few years of practice in the sanctuary, he would fear no one. Chia Jingyu smiled. She really liked her days now, as she practiced together with Su Yu, as they improved together. Su Yu felt the same. In his heart, Chia Jingyu was perfect. She had a mild temperament but was also steadfast. She was beautiful, too. No one could fault her in any way. Every man would want such a wife. But the thought passed through his mind in a flash, and Su Yu secretly shook his head. Xianna was alone in a faraway land. How could he think of another lady? Furthermore, his feelings towards Chia Jingyu were those of gratitude. He did not want to complicate things and sully her innocence and nobility. Crash. The sound of a huge impact came from the yard. Su Yu lifted his brows and exited the room. A slender youth stood in the yard. His eyes were cold. Su Yu felt like he remembered him from somewhere. You are Su Yu, the person called him out sternly. Su Yu calmly nodded his head. Is anything the matter? I am Du Lin. I think, by now, you would know why I have come for you. Between Du Lin's eyebrows was a dark energy, a subtle, murderous intent. Du Lin. Chia Jingyu's expression changed as she flew out from the room to stand beside Su Yu. The matter with Du Yuntian had been resolved by Senior Qiu. Are you not happy with the Senyu's decision? Du Lin was the one who had entered the sanctuary before Du Yuntian. They were brothers. According to his results last year, he should have been sent to the mortal sanctuary. But, Unexpectedly, he had appeared here, in the heavenly sanctuary. His cultivation level caused Su Yu and Qia Jingyu's expressions to turn grave. Level 7 upper tier. He was even more powerful than Fang Yun. Neither Su Yu nor Qia Jingyu could match him. Don't use Senior Qiu to frighten me. I came here today, not for revenge, but to learn from Su Yu. I heard that you are the strongest in the Feng Lin Empire. I want to know exactly how strong you are. While Du Lin said that he was here to learn, his tone made it clear that he was here for revenge. He did not hate Qiu Changjian, for he did not know who Qiu Changjian was. But he knew Su Yu, and he was stronger than Su Yu, so he hated him. These events had attracted some attention. Several disciples stopped to watch. Du Lin, that genius mortal sanctuary disciple. When he came here, he was just a mortal sanctuary disciple. But, in just a year he was already ranked 5th of the prospective holy disciples. His abilities are terrifying. Feng Hao was gloating. Su Yu had attracted too much attention, which attracted stronger bullies. Power was everything in the heavenly sanctuary. As long as there was no killing nor maiming, a challenge could be made anywhere. Qia Jingyu was furious. Du Lin, do not force everyone to do your will. You know very well why your brother was killed, why use this as an excuse for revenge? Scram. I was not looking for you. Du Lin spat. Du Lin threatened Su Yu with an electrifying gaze. Today you will accept my challenge, even if you do not wish to. The aura of a level 7 upper tier blanketed the surroundings. Du Lin was being forceful and barbaric, which angered Su Yu. Did he have to bear such humiliations just because he was weaker? If he just had a little time, he would surely catch up to Du Lin. But Su Yu had no time. He had to challenge Du Lin today, even with such an improbable victory. Su Yu would rather die standing than live on his knees. He would earn his pride and respect himself. If you wish to battle, then we shall. Su Yu's purple robe billowed and his black hair danced in the wind. His star-like eyes showed no trace of fear, only a ferocious determination emanated from him. Su Yu stepped forward, thunderbolts manifesting in his palm. He conjured a small black sword with his eyes and entered his picturesque realm. Wind gathered under his feet. He was formless as he walked on light and clutched clouds. Su Yu utilized everything he had learned as he made the first move. This would be the most powerful enemy he had ever faced. You want to teach me a lesson? Prepare to lose some teeth. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 69. You overestimate your abilities. Du Lin frowned slightly, his eyes scornful. Su Yu was certainly very strong. He utilized various kinds of martial arts and, just as the rumors said, he had exceeded level 6 peak of the martial path. But in the eyes Du Lin, he wasn't strong enough to withstand a single blow. His heart fueled by murderous intentions, Du Lin brazenly made a move. Thump. Suddenly the sound of a faraway bell boomed throughout the sky and land. Du Lin quivered, his face aghast as he looked back toward the center of the sanctuary. There, the sound came from an ancient hall, suspended among the clouds. The senior disciples, who had gathered to watch the commotion, turned around in shock and profound reverence. Thump. The second bell sounded. What? The Holy King sounded the bell twice. Du Lin was shocked. Without hesitation, he headed toward the sanctuary. He even neglected Su Yu and his former challenge. The rest of the senior disciples, each in awe, urgently left in a flash. Swish, swish, swish. Numerous figures appeared from all over as they dashed toward the ancient hall among the floating clouds. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu looked at each other. What did that bell mean? Swish. A pale man swept past Su Yu and paused. The Holy King has summoned us. Why are you not hurrying there? The man reprimanded him. It was Qiu Changjian. The Holy King had summoned them. Su Yu's face was shocked. The Holy King, the legendary martial force of the Alliance of the Nine Empires, had summoned them. Without another word, Su Yu and Qia Jingyu left together with Qiu Changjian, in awe. Qiu Changjian explained on the way, inside the hall of the Holy King, there is a holy bell. Only the Holy King has the ability to sound the bell. 1 strike is a regular summons by the Holy King. 2 strikes mean it's an emergency summons. Qiu Changjian's eyebrows tightened with worry, his heart ached. Su Yu's eyes flashed. Senior brother Qiu, may I ask, how often do emergencies occur? Qiu Changjian shook his head and gravely replied, emergency summons. In the history of the sanctuary, they have only occurred twice. The first time was when the sanctuary was established. The bell summoned everyone to the sanctuary congregation. That was 100 years ago. Today is the second emergency summons. Su Yu's pupils contracted. There had only been one other emergency summons since the sanctuary had been established. Now, unexpectedly, another had been raised. What did that mean? Should Su Yu be excited, or worried? Chia Jingyu's pretty face looked somber. Senior brother Qiu, you often have audiences with the Holy King. Do you know what's happening? She and Su Yu remembered that Qiu Changjian had hurried to the Holy King for his debriefing after they had all arrived. Could that have been related? How could she know? Qiu Changjian laughed to himself. Often. Junior sister Chia thinks too highly of senior brother Qiu. A holy disciple is just a nominal disciple. I have no real virtue nor ability. How could I meet him? I have been at the sanctuary for 15 years. I was lucky to have seen him when I was promoted to a holy disciple. I haven't seen him in 15 years. Qiu Changjian's face full of admiration. The Holy King is always in seclusion. He issues commands to the hall directly. His real face is almost never revealed in public. With this emergency summons, the Holy King is sure to have left isolation. You're lucky, you just arrived and now you get to see the Holy King in person. Senior disciples who have been here for 10 years have never seen the Holy King's face. Qiu Changjian concluded enviously. Lucky. Su Yu's expression was still grave. Within moments, people had arrived at the hall of the Holy King amidst the floating clouds. Their heads were bowed in deference while they stood. The top great holy disciples, the 10 great prospective holy disciples, and countless senior prospective holy disciples, altogether, more than 100 people had gathered. No one dared breathe too loudly. The atmosphere was tense and strangely quiet. Crunch. An ancient stone door opened slowly. An unfortunate wind swept through. The stone door opened wide in a cloud of mist to reveal the ancient temple inside. The Holy King was nowhere to be found. Su Yu tried to focus his eyes. He had the ability to see in the dark. But, when he tried to look, he was unable to decipher anything. There seemed to be a layer of divine power which blocked his view. Ah, there was an aged sigh. Everyone was touched by a hint of apology. There is a single reason for why I have summoned you all here today. The Holy King's voice sounded distant and remote. Logic inferred that his voice came from somewhere inside the hall. But, to Su Yu and the others, the sound seemed to envelop them. It was everywhere at once. After a moment, the Holy King's aged voice came again. I wanted to say that the sanctuary will be dissolved from today onwards. Though his voice was soft, the words pierced the souls of all who heard them. Everyone was incredibly alarmed. The sanctuary dissolved. The sanctuary of the Alliance of the 9 Holy Empires, the martial arts holy land of millions, dissolved. No one remained calm as they faced the news. Even the senior disciples, such as Senior Brother Zhao, Senior Brother Zhang, and Qiu Changjian found it difficult to accept. More than 100 people were instantly and indescribably shocked. They whispered among themselves. It felt as though the sky was falling. Master. Swish, swish, swish. The 10 great holy disciples simultaneously knelt. We beseech you, Master, please revoke your edict. Qiu Changjian was so shocked, it was hard to bear such an upheaval. The vast sanctuary dissolved overnight. Please, Holy King, revoke your edict. Swish, swish, swish. The 10 great prospective disciples followed on their knees, looks of horror in their eyes. Swish, swish, swish. Hundreds of disciples all knelt in succession as they looked toward the Holy King imploringly. If the sanctuary were to be dissolved, where would they go? What would they do? Inside the dark hall, the Holy King sighed at their fate. If only The matter has been decided. All martial artists aside from the 10 great holy disciples are to prepare their things and leave the sanctuary tomorrow. Holy King. Hundreds of devastated voices rose in despair. It was their Armageddon. The sanctuary was the only place in the whole world where they could better their skills and progress along the martial path. Without the sanctuary, they were just average men in a world they had not trained for. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu were dazed and despondent. They had only arrived yesterday, and now the sanctuary was being dissolved. Where would they go and what would they do? Chia Jingyu could return to the Martial Arts Training Institute, but what about Su Yu? Without the sanctuary, how could Su Yu train enough to be able to take on Fenguang Valley? An imposing force flowed from the hall. It evoked terror and determination in those who felt it. All the disciples were shocked to silence as cold sweat gathered on their brows. The Holy King was angry. This matter has already been decided. The Holy King would not tolerate dissent. This declaration would shock the alliance of the 9 empires. How could they dissolve the sanctuary? No. A young man stood in protest. He dared defy the Holy King. Back down. Inside the dark hall came the indifferent old voice. It sounded as though it could order heaven to fall and hell to rise, but the boy still stood. Someone is depending on me, I must stay. It was Su Yu. His powerful speech resonated in people's hearts. I beg the Holy King to please fulfill my wish. Su Yu bowed in supplication. He needed the sanctuary to train. Xianna was his fiancée, he had to see her. Don't make me tell you twice. An oppressive energy rumbled forward. The Holy King was enraged. Su Yu's body trembled. He felt like he had a mountain on his shoulders. He was anxious and adrenaline flowed freely. Extreme pain spread all over his body as fresh blood spilled from his mouth. But Su Yu still stood. His star-like eyes projected an unprecedented fierceness. Please, Holy King, fulfill. He struggled to speak around a mouthful of blood. The crowd was in awe. Who was this boy? What did he need to do so badly? Who was this person who depended on him? The small boy seemed to grow in the hearts of all who saw him. Qiu Changjian's eyes quivered, his inner heart moved. Su Yu had traveled 1,000 miles to the imperial capital in order to fight in a death match for no personal gain, only to save the life of his friend. Now, he had publicly disagreed with the Holy King, despite 100 others who stayed silent. Crash. The dark hall suddenly glowed brilliantly, the inside clearly visible. There was a white-haired bony old man with a beard, white like a crane's feathers and an innocently rosy-colored face. An air of otherworldliness surrounded his celestial appearance. He seemed like a fictional deity pulled from an ancient text. He sat cross-legged openly in front of all, but his appearance seemed blurred as if it was an illusion or projection. This man was the legendary martial force of the Alliance of the 9 Empires, the Holy King. His aged eyes, as placid as an ancient deep well, held no waves. He looked over Su Yu apathetically. You think I would not dare to kill you where you stand? Everyone under heaven would clap and agree that defying the will of the Holy King was a capital offense. The Holy King was the legendary martial force. Anyone who defied him deserved death. Su Yu, mouth full of blood, tightly clenched his jaw. No. You'll kill me. Su Yu realized how elitist the Holy King truly was. He viewed common people as insects. He would have no problem killing Su Yu. If I can't see the person who needs me, I'm as good as dead. Su Yu articulated every word carefully, his deep eyes filled with unprecedented determination. Without a sanctuary to train in, Su Yu would surely be obliterated at Fenguang Valley. Now or later, his death was inevitable. As good as dead, what kind of heavy burden could he be shouldering with such a skinny body? The audience's hearts were moved. You wish to tell me you're not afraid to die? The Holy King was cold, murderous, and indifferent. He had lived for a century and seen countless determined individuals. Su Yu was no different than the rest. I'm afraid. Su Yu spat out blood and words, but I'm most afraid of dying with regrets. Dying with regrets. The Holy King looked reminiscent. After a long silence, the Holy King deeply sighed. If I had your comprehension long ago, perhaps, this would be another type of encounter. Everyone's hearts were shaken. Su Yu had unexpectedly touched the Holy King's heart. Would he be able to stay? But the Holy King abruptly turned cold and resolutely shook his head. But I can't keep you. You are too weak. Only the 10 great holy disciples are adequate enough to follow me. Barely. Su Yu gritted his teeth, his body almost on the verge of collapse. His mouth was full of blood as he growled, "Then I will become a top 10 ranked holy disciple." These words were a shock to the heart. The sanctuary had existed for a century, but holy disciples were scarce. The only holy disciple from the past decade was Qiu Changjian. Countless prospective holy disciples had sadly withdrawn and left the sanctuary. What made Su Yu think he could be a holy disciple? Still, no one mocked him. Everyone dreamed of becoming a holy disciple when they arrived at the sanctuary. Su Yu's boldness put him above the rest, his bravery in going against the Holy King shocking them all. The harsh nature of reality had broken them all, but Su Yu's bold act had moved them. What could possibly motivate a man to act so brazenly? Who gave him the courage to rebel? The Holy King glanced at Su Yu indifferently and slowly shook his head. "You won't do." His words were law. The Holy King's judgment was shrewd and ruthless. He knew, with a single glance and 90% accuracy, the nature of a person's fate. The last 10% was left to chance. "I can," Su Yu roared. He had come from a poor background. His girlfriend had been snatched by Qin Feng. He had started as the lowest silver student, and now had he not worked his way up to the much-revered sanctuary? A single, determined phrase invoked fire in the hearts of many. Countless disciples secretly clenched their fists. Many of them suddenly understood that, perhaps, their years of halted progress was not due to lack of resources, but due to a lack of determination, similar to the determination Su Yu now showed so openly. The determination to die with no regrets. Staring at that pair of dedicated eyes, the Holy King suddenly felt offended. Not only had Su Yu failed to move him, but he had actually angered him. The Holy King slowly rose, his expression ice-cold. His body language was tense, a moment away from breaking out into a destructive rage. "Stand down or die," the Holy King said. That one sentence completely destroyed all hope. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 70. Su Yu was dismayed. Originally, he had thought that the sanctuary would be a safe place for him to cultivate his abilities and, in time, when he was strong enough, he would be reunited with Xiana. He had not anticipated the dissolution of the sanctuary. Luck simply was not on his side. Furthermore, the Holy King, finally in front of him in person, had turned murderous. Swish. A beautiful shadow flew in front of Su Yu. "Holy King, please, give him a chance." Jia Jingyu slightly lifted the hem of her clothes as she groveled before the Holy King. She was touched by Su Yu's devotion, though she was still pained by his disregard for his own life for the sake of Xiana. The killing intent in the eyes of the Holy King deepened. "Back down, or you too will die. Please, Holy King, fulfill his wish." Jia Jingyu begged and pleaded, her pretty eyes persistent. Humph. Such insolence. The Holy King was completely enraged. It was still tolerable with one person provoking His Majesty, and now another person. Where was His Majesty in all this? Within one word, the Holy King would be able to determine both their lives and deaths. It was not entirely absurd for one person to go against the Holy King, but now there were two. The Holy King could order their deaths with a single word. What would happen now? Just as the deaths of the two rebels seemed certain, another figure appeared. "Master, please give Su Yu a chance." Qiu Changjian bowed as he appealed to the Holy King on his friend's behalf. His heart trembled. Only through understanding Su Yu's past could one understand Su Yu's persistence. Su Yu fought for kindness and loyalty, whatever the cost may be. Would it not be a pity to destroy a person with such sentiments? Even you. The Holy King was astonished for the first time. His 10 nominal disciples, ordinarily so subservient and obedient under his constant rule, had suddenly spoken out against him, all because of this young man, Su Yu. "Holy King, please give Su Yu a chance." Swish, swish, swish. Countless older prospective holy disciples groveled on the ground simultaneously. The will of 100 people, all joined together as they begged the highest of the 9 heavens to reconsider. It was a pleading chorus. They were moved by Su Yu. Unlike countless other men, Su Yu had stood up against the Holy King, all for the sake of one person. You all. The Holy King was furious. All his disciples were defying him, thanks to this Su Yu. Mind over matter, as they say. The Holy King could laugh off a single rebel, and 2 he would quell quickly. But 3, he would at least hear their grievances. But 100 people now stood in opposition. The Holy King could not help but begin to doubt his decision. His resolve was shaken as he observed all the pleading faces, and he considered things for a moment before his stern, murderous gaze flipped back to Su Yu. All right, I'll give you a chance, I'll give all of you a chance. You can all stay in the sanctuary again for a month. Then, at the storm competition, if you can earn a spot in the top 10, I'll let you stay by my side. The Holy King had chosen to give him a chance, but the cost would be exceptionally brutal. The Holy King focused on Su Yu. But, Su Yu, in a month, if you fail to reach the ability of a holy disciple, what should be your punishment? Su Yu was apprehensive. The Holy King was such a legendary martial force, and Su Yu had compelled him to concede. Doing so diminished the Holy King's reputation. He had already displayed his generosity by not killing Su Yu where he stood. If Su Yu failed to achieve what he was determined to do within a month, it was obvious what the Holy King would do. I know. Death. Su Yu nodded deeply. That's right. Death. The Holy King confirmed coldly. But, not your death, hers. The Holy King's finger pointed outward, and a thread of strange holy power struck Qia Jingyu's body. Qia Jingyu lightly hummed as she felt a destructive power fill her body. If I do not take the holy power back, she will be overcome and die in a month's time. The Holy King's icy voice was veiled with anger. Su Yu's expression changed. I'm the one who defied you, why are you punishing her? Swoosh. The Holy King stormed off. Though he was clearly in front of Su Yu one moment, the next moment he was deep inside the hall. Just a blink and the Holy King was gone. Even if Su Yu were to fully use the space-time manipulation technique, he could never catch up to the Holy King. Bang. The inside of the hall was plunged into darkness as the huge stone door slowly closed. Before the door fully closed, the apathetic voice of the Holy King echoed outward, for a man who disregards death, true pain is not their own demise, but that of a loved one. Staring at Qia Jingyu, Su Yu was stunned. He tried to express the remorse in his heart but was at a loss for words. He had been the one to bargain with death, but somehow, it had been determined that Qia Jingyu would pay the price. Jingyu, Su Yu's guilt was indescribable. Qia Jingyu looked placid as ever, as she smiled. I'm fine. Though she tried to restrain herself, she was unable to hide the slight waver in her voice which revealed her inner instinctive fear of death. Qia Jingyu comfortingly smiled still. Su Yu, if you can get Xiana back, even if it means I must die, then I will have no regrets. Su Yu's heart quivered as he felt pangs of pain. He owed Qia Jingyu a lot and would never be able to repay her. Jingyu, I will not let you die. Su Yu was silent for a long time. He was resolved. He would risk his life for Xiana, and he would save Qia Jingyu. As she gazed into Su Yu's eyes, Qia Jingyu felt her heart pound. Her fears were appeased by a sense of peace and calm which reverberated in her heart. She smiled brightly, like a summer lotus, pure and beautiful. Brother Yu, come on. Qia Jingyu's lips pursed lightly and her pretty face slightly blushed with a sunset glow. With that single phrase, their relationship had grown. Qia Jingyu was 14, as was Su Yu. He was only older than Qia Jingyu by a few months. Therefore, Qia Jingyu had never addressed him as Brother Yu before. Su Yu was flooded with warm feelings. He owed Jingyu too much. He had to protect her. Su Yu needed to reach the standards of a holy disciple, even with only a single month's time to prepare and cultivate his skills. Swish. Qiu Changjian came over. His eyes held a deep admiration. Before this, he'd only just barely appreciated Su Yu. Su Yu, you're a good person, Qiu Changjian praised. His eyes glanced at Qia Jingyu. He was deeply moved and a bit jealous of Su Yu. How lucky he was to have such a loyal, beautiful girl in his life. What else could anyone want? Are you confident that you're capable of becoming a holy disciple? Qiu Changjian asked. Honestly, I have no clue what those standards are, Su Yu replied bluntly. Qiu Changjian's eyes flashed as he pronounced each word carefully. Very simple, defeat me. Of the 10 great holy disciples, Qiu Changjian was ranked 10th. He was the weakest holy disciple. In accordance with old rules, one qualified for the holy disciples by beating the weakest ranked disciple. Su Yu was shaken. Qiu Changjian, a level 9 lower tier, could wipe out Su Yu with a snap of his finger. Such a strong man set the lowest standard for becoming a holy disciple. Su Yu had to attain level 9 lower tier in order to save Qia Jingyu. I will ask you again, do you have a specific cultivation plan? Qiu Changjian's eyes gleamed. Su Yu shook his head. Go into seclusion to cultivate, and then compare notes from actual combat. If you use such a common way of cultivation, then you'll be doomed to look on helplessly as beautiful junior sister Qia dies a certain death. Qiu Changjian lightly chided him, before he fiercely added, Master thinks you are incapable of becoming a holy disciple. His judgment is not invalid. Su Yu felt apprehensive. I request senior brother Qiu to please advise. He pleaded. Qiu Changjian's eyes flashed. Senior brother can indeed direct you to a path of rapid breakthrough, but it is dangerous and unpredictable with a possible death at every turn. Are you willing to try? He asked seriously. Su Yu nodded with nearly no hesitation. I have already disregarded my own life, but I need to protect Qia Jingyu's. He would rather die than implicate Qia Jingyu. Good, you, come with me, Qiu Changjian said. Qia Jingyu gracefully breezed over. I'll go too. In a month I may die anyway, so I may as well. Qiu Changjian slightly hesitated before he nodded in agreement. After a long while, they descended from the heavenly sanctuary and arrived at the southeast corner of the mortal sanctuary. There lay a dense, primeval forest. The territory was vast, about 100 miles wide. A cold and gloomy atmosphere engulfed the inside of the forest, which made one shudder with fear upon approach. That's the evil forest. There are countless heinous slayers banished inside, each of their abilities is extraordinary. They are fearsome and are otherwise known as slayers of the Alliance of the Nine Empires. They are cruel, violent, killer devils. They have raped and murdered countless innocent people. They are not only formidably strong but also savage and cunning. They are extremely difficult to capture. The Imperial Alliance asked the Sanctuary for help with collecting these criminals. They asked us to dispatch the holy disciples in order to undertake the mission to capture and banish all slayers to the evil forest, where they would be forbidden to leave on the threat of execution. How could any slayer truly dare to step out of the forest under the watch of the Holy King? Qia Jingyu was puzzled. If they are so vicious, why not bring them to justice? Wouldn't it be a disaster to leave them alive? Very good question, Qiu Changjian complimented them. Banishing them to the evil forest and not killing them gives sanctuary disciples a good opportunity for true combat. It provides us the chance to struggle in true proximity with real slayers, which stimulates progression for cultivation. In 100 years, many disciples have disappeared from the sanctuary. Most of them left, but the rest found their eternal rest in the evil forest. Su Yu shuddered. He couldn't help but ask, so, what levels are these slayers at? Qiu Changjian looked solemn and deeply concerned. The lowest level slayer is level 7 of the martial path. The strongest is at level 9 lower tier. The lowest level slayer was a level 7 of the martial path. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu gasped. These were indeed the slayers who shook the alliance of the Nine Empires. It went without saying that defeating each of them would be challenging. Qia Jingyu found it all difficult to understand. Senior brother Qiu, do you mean for us to enter the evil forest and fight hand to hand with the slayers? We do see the dangers, but where is the opportunity for a breakthrough? Life and death combat could indeed advance the cultivation base, but learning from regular dueling was not much weaker. Qia Jingyu did not see how the benefits outweighed the risks. Qiu Changjian praised her observations. Very good, you've found the crux of the issue. Life and death combat is truly difficult and doesn't always make one's cultivation base advance by leaps and bounds. But every slayer's body has a piece of saint-grade spirit elixir. Su Yu was not unfamiliar with spirit elixirs, he'd ingested them many times. But what was saint-grade spirit elixir? He glanced towards Qia Jingyu, but she looked equally puzzled. A saint-grade spirit elixir was transmuted from the type of spirit elixirs ingested by martial artists of the mortal world, only the ingredients are refined differently. The difference in effect is like heaven and earth. In other words, the effect of 100 top-grade spirit elixirs is far inferior to one saint-grade spirit elixir. For you two, both level 5 peak cultivation bases, ingesting a saint-grade spirit elixir will promote you to level 6 upper tier. It will boost you over 2 tiers. Of course, as your cultivation base advances, the spirit elixir's effect will weaken proportionally. It will be difficult to have another major breakthrough. But, to put it bluntly, this is the sanctuary's fasted method to achieve a breakthrough, Qiu Changjian explained. Su Yu's breath quickened and Qia Jingyu's eyes glittered. A single breakthrough to level 6 upper tier. This would be unimaginable in the mortal world. In addition, there are 2 pieces of divine-grade spirit elixir on the bodies of level 9 criminals. Their effect is even more amazing. At the mention of divine-grade spirit elixirs, Qiu Changjian exposed a brilliant concept. There were also divine-grade spirit elixirs. Saint-grade was already so astonishing, how unbelievable would divine-grade spirit elixirs be? End of the chapter. The Divine 9 Dragon will be read in 5 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.